The prairie was quiet that evening, the kind of quiet that pressed against the skin and made a man feel the full size of his loneliness. Caleb McGraw sat in his rocking chair on the porch, boots planted firmly on the worn planks, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the sun bled orange into the open fields. He had spent years tending this land, first with Eliza, and now alone. 3 winters had passed since he buried her beneath the old oak tree, yet the ache in his chest hadn't softened. It lived there like a permanent scar, invisible but heavy. He told himself he was fine, that the ranch, the cattle, and the silence were enough. But some evenings, like this one, when the wind carried no sound but its own sigh, he wondered if the silence would one day hollow him out completely. A faint movement in the distance caught his eye. At first, it looked like a trick of the fading light. But soon, he saw a lone rider approaching, the figure swaying weakly atop a horse that seemed as tired as its rider. Caleb rose, his tall frame casting a long shadow, and narrowed his eyes. Folks didn't come this way often without reason. His hand brushed the butt of his revolver out of habit, but he didn't draw. Something in the rider's posture wasn't threatening, it was desperate. The horse stumbled as it drew near, and the woman slid from the saddle, clutching her belly with both hands. Caleb froze for a heartbeat before striding forward. She was young, but not too young, her face pale with exhaustion, strands of hair clinging to damp cheeks. The swell of her belly told him everything in an instant. "Ma'am," Caleb said, his voice rough from disuse. "You need help." She looked at him as though those words alone were a lifeline. Her lips trembled, but she forced herself to speak with dignity. "My name's Sarah Whitlock. My husband, he died last spring in a rail accident. I was bound for Dakota to stay with kin, but my horse went lame. Her breath caught as a hand pressed against her unborn child. I can't make it much farther on my own." Caleb studied her, dust clinging to her skirt, the weariness etched in her face, the way her body swayed as though a gust of wind might topple her. He knew that kind of stubborn strength. He had seen it in Eliza once, fighting through sickness, refusing to let go until the end. His chest tightened. "You'll stay here a while," Caleb said firmly. "Ain't much, but it's warm, and you won't starve." Sarah's eyes filled, though she tried not to cry. "Thank you," she whispered. He led her inside, the wooden floor creaking under their steps. The ranch house wasn't fancy, just sturdy walls, a stone fireplace, and the smell of wood smoke. Caleb set her by the fire, fetched her water, and made a simple stew from what he had. She ate slowly, like someone who had forgotten what it meant to be full. The days that followed shifted something in Caleb's routine. Sarah wasn't a woman to sit idle. Despite her condition, she folded laundry, swept floors, and hummed softly while she worked. The sound of her voice filled corners of the house Caleb hadn't noticed were so empty. At first, he avoided lingering near her, afraid of what he might feel, but she had a way of drawing words from him without effort. At supper, she spoke of her husband, how he dreamed of building a small farm, how his laughter had carried her through hard days. Caleb listened, his jaw tight, memories of Eliza surfacing like ghosts. Sometimes he added small pieces of his own past, how Eliza used to tend the roses that now grew wild, how she liked to sit under the oak tree in summer. Sarah never pressed too hard, only nodded with quiet understanding. At night, Caleb lay awake, listening to the wind batter the windows. In the room down the hall, he could hear Sarah, shifting restlessly, sometimes muttering in her sleep. He imagined her fear, carrying a child alone, trying to hold on to a future without her husband. He wondered what kind of man he was now, offering shelter not because he wanted company, but because he knew what it was to be broken and alone. One frosty morning, Caleb found Sarah sitting by the fire, both hands resting protectively on her belly. He poured her a cup of coffee, careful to keep his movements slow, deliberate. She accepted with a faint smile, her eyes glistening. "You've lost someone, too," she said softly. Caleb stiffened, caught off guard. "That obvious. You keep her close," Sarah whispered. "I can tell." Caleb's throat tightened. Her name was Eliza. Buried her out back beneath the oak. She always liked that tree. Sarah bowed her head. "I'm sorry, Caleb." He looked out the window at the cattle beyond the fence, their steady movement a reminder of how life pressed forward no matter who it left behind. "Life don't care much for fairness," he muttered. But as the weeks stretched on, something unspoken grew between them. When Sarah stumbled one icy morning, Caleb caught her without thinking, steadying her against his chest. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither moved. The connection was fragile, fleeting, but undeniable. Caleb pulled away quickly, telling himself this wasn't about him, it was about her, about the child. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, life wasn't done with him yet. The storm rolled in heavy that night, clouds splitting open with rain that hammered the ranch house roof like 1,000 hooves. Caleb woke to a cry, sharp, strained, cutting through the thunder. He bolted upright, heart hammering, and within seconds was in the hallway. The door to Sarah's room stood open, lamplight flickering inside. She was gripping the bed frame, doubled over, her hair plastered to her face with sweat. Her eyes found his, wild with fear. "Caleb," she gasped, her voice breaking, "it's time." He froze for a moment, the weight of what she said hitting him harder than the storm outside. He had seen cattle born, foals delivered, but never a child, not like this. Still, there was no choice. He moved fast, gathering towels, heating water on the stove, remembering bits of advice his mother once gave when she helped women in town. His hands trembled, but his voice when he spoke was steady. "You'll be all right, Sarah," he said, kneeling at her side. "Just breathe. I've got you." The hours that followed stretched long, each contraction ringing a cry from her that rattled his bones. The house echoed with her screams and the storm's fury, as if nature itself bore witness. Caleb held her hand, wiping sweat from her brow with a cloth, murmuring encouragement he barely realized he was saying. When she begged him not to let go, he stayed. When her strength faltered, he lifted her shoulders, whispering, "One more, you can do this." At last, with a final cry that seemed to tear through her whole being, the sound changed. A thin, piercing wail filled the room, fragile yet powerful, a new life declaring itself. Caleb's breath caught as he held the child in his large, calloused hands, wrapping the boy carefully in a blanket. He had delivered calves with less trembling. His chest tightened as he looked down at the tiny face, red and scrunched from the effort of being born. Then the child's eyes blinked open. Caleb froze. The baby's eyes, blue, clear, startlingly familiar, looked up at him, and for a heartbeat he couldn't breathe. They were the same eyes that had once steadied him through storms, that had laughed at him from across the dinner table, that had closed for the last time beneath the oak tree 3 winters ago. Eliza's eyes. His late wife's eyes, staring back at him from a child that was not his blood. The world seemed to tilt. His knees nearly buckled as he sat back, staring, his throat tightening until he thought he might choke. "Caleb." Sarah's weak voice broke through his haze. She was pale, tears streaming down her face, arms outstretched. "Is he all right?" He swallowed hard, forcing air into his lungs. "He's perfect," he whispered hoarsely. His hands didn't want to let go, but he lowered the child gently into her arms. Sarah cradled him close, weeping with relief, kissing his forehead again and again. But she looked up at Caleb, her eyes narrowing. "What is it? You look like you've seen a ghost." Caleb turned away, staring out the rain-streaked window, his jaw clenched. He couldn't explain what he saw, not yet. How could he tell her that this child carried a piece of his own lost love, that fate seemed to have tied them together in ways neither of them could understand? His voice came low, rough, like a man speaking more to himself than to her. "Your boy's got a strong spirit. He's gonna do just fine." The days that followed left no time for pondering. A newborn demanded everything. Caleb surprised himself with how quickly he adapted. He woke in the night when the baby cried, rocking him with surprising gentleness. He learned to heat milk, to walk slow circles around the room until the wailing softened. Once, Sarah woke to find Caleb asleep in the rocking chair, the child tucked against his chest, his head tilted back, the lines of grief in his face softened in slumber. The ranch hands teased, calling him, "Uncle," but they did it with a smile. Caleb brushed it off, though deep inside he felt something stirring, something long dormant. He found himself watching the boy's eyes, every blink, every searching glance. Each time he saw them, he felt the ache of Eliza's memory, but also something new, hope, fragile but real. One evening, when the storm had long passed and the world outside was calm again, Sarah sat by the fire with the baby nestled against her. She stitched quietly, her face softened by lamplight. She looked up suddenly, her gaze locking on him. "You've done more than I ever dreamed anyone would," she said softly. "You saved us, Caleb. I don't know how to repay you." He shifted, uncomfortable under her steady eyes. "Don't reckon you owe me anything. House feels alive again, is all. I thought I'd lost that forever." Her hand brushed his, lingering, warm and sure. Maybe neither of us was meant to be alone. Caleb looked at her, then at the child, those blue eyes blinking up at him with a clarity that shook him to his core. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a man bound to grief. He felt like a man standing at the edge of something new. The widowed cowboy drew in a deep breath, steady and sure, and knew in his heart that the baby's eyes were not a curse, not a ghost, but a gift. A piece of the past, yes, but more importantly, a promise for the future.